Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, a licensed professional counselor and EMDR certified therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists and healers about the deeper layers of mental health, nervous system healing, and what it really means to come home to yourself. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jessy Coleman. Jessy is a therapist, behavioral analyst, and yoga teacher who has a true gift for translating psychology into metaphors people can feel. As an LPC-S, a BCBA, LBA, ERYTA 500, and a YACEP, she blends acceptance and commitment therapy with somatics, behavior science, and mindful movement to support neurodivergent and trauma experienced humans in deeply embodied ways. Jessy is the founder of Creekside Therapeutics and Jessy C Yoga, where she creates tools, workshops, and nature-based experiences designed to make healing accessible, embodied, and occasionally a little nerdy in the best possible way. Her work beautifully bridges science, movement, and meaning, and I'm just so glad that you're here. So thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
Uh, so I ask everyone, what brought you into the therapy world?
Yes, where to begin? Yeah. So I was originally, when I was going out of high school, I was going to do like biomedical engineering. So I was in like really heavy like health and sciences anyway. And then I was like, I don't know about that. I had a child at the time as well. So there were just some like practical things that I needed to think about as well in that particular case. And so then I wound up into nursing and I was like, that's not really for me either. But I took a psychology class and I was like, ooh, I don't understand people. This could be a good use of my time to learn a little bit here. And as I was going through that process, I had a friend who was like, you could probably be a pretty good therapist. You should go to grad school. And I had never even thought about that. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, I think this probably could be for me. And then I tripped, fell, and now I'm deep in all the psychology things. So here we are, and probably deeper to go.
It sounds like it's such like a winding journey. So,
Very much.
were you like hoping to be like a medical doctor and like doing all those things initially, and then just
I was actually wanting to work on orthopedic knees, for example. And one of the projects I was planning on working on with when I was accepted and going into the program originally was using actually like heart stents and like designing those and working with how to do that. And so it's interesting because while that's on the physical side of things, of course, like the mind and body are connected. I think it's very
Mhm.
interesting on the psychology side of things how I've been able to see different things like that work together as well. So there's lots of different ways to help people, I think.
Yeah, that's like really cool. So I can only just imagine like how like your mind's always like going like with the mind and body connection, how because you have a really deep understanding of like physiology and anatomy, and like how you can kind of pull that into the actual therapy space, which is so cool.
Yes, absolutely. And things that sometimes you don't even think about, like sometimes a client will be like, oh, I'm so nauseous. And we think it's anxiety, and it is, but it's actually because they're holding their breath. So it's like a physiological symptom that's actually causing some of the nausea, but then not just like the thoughts and parts. Yeah, anyways, just some interesting connections to be able to find and look through.
Yeah. So with like that, so like whenever you pull in your like this medic work, what is like your favorite thing to do with clients?
Honestly, I have this chair in my office, and so I really prefer it if they can come in the office. This chair, it's a little ADHD chair, has the little weird squiggles and that you lay on, and just having adults lay on that and just let themselves relax to a certain degree and like just taking them through that and just watching them sink into it and just helping people actually relax into their body. Because even when they come in, and I'm sure you've experienced this with clients, you can see their shoulders are up in their ears, they're tense in the at the front of the seat. And so just getting them to lean back and that helps them get more confident and comfortable in who they are anyway, because they're not in the fight or flight, obviously.
Yeah, that's so cool. Do you have the chair with you? Like, are
I
you able to
do.
kind
Yeah,
of
I can show you.
have?
Yes, this guy here. Hmm.
Ah, that looks super comfy.
Yes, yes. And then we've got weighted blankets and things like that too to help support any version of rest that feels good. Because some people need to feel a little more grounded to relax back, and some people are okay just feeling a little more open in the chest. And so I think that's one of the cool things about Somatics when you're like, what's your favorite thing to do with people? It's a little hard to answer that so specifically because everyone is so different. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
like, just the things that help people unlock that space for themselves.
That is true. That is really so powerful too. Because like actually, I'm strictly virtual myself, but like even just see people like whenever they're like at home, just actually be like actually settle in. It's just so
Yes.
powerful.
Which I love again with telehealth being able to, people are in their own space so they can be more comfortable. So I absolutely love that aspect as well, for sure.
Yeah. So how did you know that you wanted to do more like with the neurodiverse population?
So I grew up, my youngest brother, who's about 5 years younger than me, is diagnosed autistic and didn't know until he was an adult, but we all knew as, growing up. So it was an interesting dynamic that we went through. So I always just was around it and we always accommodate, like that was just a part of my life. And when I went into psychology, that field and trying to find jobs, one of the things that I did was I didn't understand fully at the time, and I know I'm a BCBA, and that has like a whole history behind it. And I don't do ABA, but I have in the past been trained, so that's a whole nother conversation, I think, and could be part of this one too. But that was part of like the neurodivergence, and that helped me working with autism specifically. But that kind of helped me land some interest with a practice who had a queer and neurodivergent kind of intersection, which was really more what I was looking for that because I've been doing a lot of research with that in my graduate, and that's an intersection of myself. Research is me search. And so it just all came together without really, yeah, the path made itself essentially.
Yeah, that's so true. Because like I do, yeah, there's a lot of overlap and like crossroads, like you said, between the queer community and neurodiverse. I love the term neurospicy. I always
Yes,
love saying that because I think it's so much. I think it's so much more fun and like it's so much less clinical too. It's just like you have a
right.
little spice in your life, and it's just fun.
Yes, I'm trying to remember who coined the phrase, but I remember there was information about that I was always, yeah, I'm always interested in that. Speaking of neurodiversity, like where did it come from? Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I just remember hearing it and I'm like, oh, I like this.
Mhm.
I like this. It just feels
Yeah.
right. I am not diagnosed with anything neurospicy, but it's like just working with people that are, it's just like it's like I'm just so crazy. I'm like, no, you're just like you're spicy. You have some little spice in your life. And the little twist, like that little change too, like can helps calm them down too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like that understanding or common relation, however we want to, whatever name we want to call it, just that connection, maybe. There we go.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about like the organization that you joined with has the convergence between the queer community and the neurodivergent community. What was that like for you?
When you say joining organizations, what can you tell me? Sorry, can you tell me that? Can you ask me that again?
Yeah, that's a little that got a little jumbled. So whenever you found the organization or like the agency you started working for
Mm.
that had the divergence, how many experience and what it was like for you?
Yes, absolutely. It was great for one, and it was going in as an LPC intern at the time. And I was again coming from an RBT background and then also this LPC training. And then I was also going back into trying to get my master's for ABA because the way that it worked, I needed that to be. And at that time, I thought I'd like to have options that could, and at the time, again, I was still like exploring what that meant. And so I got to do a lot of really cool things with that. I got to work at a therapeutic school. I got to do as contract even through this particular practice. And they did autism evaluation. And so I got to at least see a lot of that. And I now do that as a part of my practice. And so I got to have a lot of that training that was already there. And then they were just so good about, we would have monthly meetings, and we would even like invite the community and really focus on, okay, what are issues that are coming up, or even in politics, what's coming up that we need to be aware of to be taking care of our clients and being informed of ourselves and being ready for. So I felt very much like supported in that. It wasn't just said that it was a focus, it really was, and we like lived that. So that felt really good.
That's really cool. So now you alluded to a little bit about like the kind of hot button issue with ABA
Yes.
in the autistic community. So I have my own feelings about it, but tell me a little bit about your feelings about
Sure.
it.
Yep, absolutely. I have since learned as an adult that I am also autistic, and I am ADHD myself. I've gotten those official kind of diagnoses more recently, and understanding of myself. And so that's been very interesting. But yeah, when I first went into ABA, I of course had no idea, like it was a job, right? And that's not that it's an excuse, but money does tend, and again, practicality does tend to lead to those things. And so going
Yeah.
into it, I feel like I was very lucky in my training as well, because I had a BCBA who also happened to have had like part of their training as a play therapist. So not that it's like not every BCBA, and I felt like this particular training that I got was not the same as what I have seen in other areas since not working in that place and being under her work. So that is a lot of why I don't participate in ABA. I have worked for a company in the past and I hated it. It just did not feel right. Like it was just none of it made sense and it didn't feel good to be doing. And so I don't practice ABA. Again, acceptance and commitment therapy actually was founded from Stephen Hayes, who is a BCBA. So there is like an interesting component to that and history with that, because acceptance and commitment therapy, I do feel like is a very useful tool to use and can be flexible with a lot of other modalities. And I think values-based living is a pretty solid thing to work with. So that's a little bit of my history and where I sit and where I land on it. And I certainly support a lot of other autistic BCBAs who are out there who are doing a lot of the work to make the field more maybe what it could be in a helpful way, as opposed to what it has been in the past. Yes. I'd love to hear what your
Yeah.
thoughts are on that. Any more questions you have for me on that and what your experience has been too?
Mine's like similar. So right out of not right out of undergrad, but like shortly after undergrad, I got a job as a TSS, which is Therapeutics support staff, working with autistic individuals and like behavioral individuals like in their
Hmm.
homes. And I had they had started training me in ABA because it was just kind of like part of the job.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started doing that training, this is awful. Like, this is
Hmm.
not good for these kids.
There's
I
no
am not doing
autonomy.
this. Yeah, I
Hmm.
am not doing this. So I left because this is not okay. Like, I am not going to be part of this. Like this,
Right.
and it really is suppression, in my opinion, of like their uniqueness
Hmm.
and like their own individuality. It's like they're not going to live life as a neurotypical person because they're
Right.
not. And
Right.
forcing them to is just awful. And I just could not do it.
Absolutely. And so yes, I love how I've been able to, with everything, just morph it into something of more of, okay, how can we be supportive and collaborative as opposed to the system that, yes, is very suppressive.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously understand that. I understand that there's part where the world isn't always going to cater to their special needs, but it's like, but
Sure.
it can, and we can give them, but we can also give them tools to cope with things whenever it's not going to cater to like their specific needs. I think that part
Right.
is like where it needed to go. It's give them tools to exist in the world that does not
Right.
always fit them.
Exactly. And find accommodations and resources where available as well.
Yeah.
And advocacy in that way. That is a much different approach, right?
Yeah. And I love like that more people are like doing that type of work in the community versus in you have to pigeonhole yourself into a box that does not fit, which then
Right.
leads to adults that have all these things like, I don't feel right. This doesn't fit me. It's yeah, because you've been cutting parts of yourself off for years to fit into a
Exactly.
box that was never meant for you.
It's forced masking that's then reinforced that you continue right throughout.
Yeah.
Yep.
But can you talk a little bit about how you felt knowing that you are also like diagnosed with autism and ADHD as an adult versus as a kid?
Yes. So it's interesting because looking back, I can see it and working with my therapist and doing some of the assessments and working with that, right? I've been able to see a lot of it. Not that everything is like this, but I certainly, I did learn to read almost by myself and very early. Again, not that is the only thing, right? But then outside of that, I had a lot of social issues. I can vividly remember like vividly remember social situations that are like burned in my memory even now. For a long time,
Mhm.
I didn't like to talk to people. There's a lot of correlation as well with eating disorders, and I had a comorbidity with neurodivergence and with autism and ADHD and assigned female at birth and queer in general. Also, there's a lot of kind of cross research with that, but that was something that I experienced as well. And so as I look through, I'm like, oh, a lot of these things are making sense. I also, just being an honest person, but I am diagnosed with PMDD as well, and that has been a long-standing diagnosis. There's also so much with that, right? And I'm so grateful for all the research that is coming out about understanding that, because honestly, like getting on Adderall, not that medication is for everyone and think, but for me, that was such a change, life changing for me as opposed to before. And there was a meme the other day I saw that it was like, if I had been given Adderall in sixth grade, I would be a homeowner by now or something like that. And I was like, okay, I can resonate with that to a certain degree. Even though
Yeah.
I own a business, there has certainly been a lot of self-accommodations that I have made throughout life and something that I have learned. And kind of mentioning, I was talking about masking earlier, hardcore, right? Taking some of those assessments was one of the most eye-opening things I could, and working through some of that was one of the most eye-opening things for myself as well. It was just very interesting. And then again, with the family history, it also makes
Mhm.
sense. And
Yeah.
mine, we are just all looks different. My brother is a white male, so was very stereotypically also assessed. And he did have very stereotypical kind of symptoms in that way. So he fit all the little boxes, but mine were much more like quiet or internal. And so it didn't look the same. Yeah, I don't know. Does that
Yeah.
answer your question or any other thoughts on
Hey,
that?
no, it does. It's just, I have so many friends personally, and even as clients, where like they don't get diagnosed, especially women, don't get diagnosed until later on in life, whenever they get advocate for themselves, and all
Mhm.
the struggles that they had growing up, the masking, the and all that being reinforced. It's and I just I've seen them like have this weight lift off their weight off their chest. Yeah, this is me, and like dealing with the grief and almost like also kind of like resentment to the people, like to the adults in their lives, to not noticing it sooner and kind of processing through that has been like huge.
Absolutely. And especially on that front, that's something I'm like, again, I can look back and I'm like, I see it. But then also that's with understanding now that wasn't as widespread then and they were doing the best that they could. But yeah, I think the self-accommodation piece and how people just noticed that and they were like, cool, she's taking care of herself. Great. And has handled it also, I think, is something I've, yeah, been processing through on that as well.
Yeah, and as a parent myself, like I am currently doing this with my son because there's a history of ADHD on my side of the family and on my husband's side of the family, and I see the signs in my son. I'm not, also not trying to label him, but like I'm getting him the help now at 5 that
Right.
he needs to help set him up for success later on in life. But also, like, I have more understanding of that world because I'm in it than
Mhm.
my family and my husband's family. But it's also just, I'm not trying to excuse it, but like in the early 90s, when most of us were born, things were still being studied and trying to figure out like what's going on. And how here we are almost 30 years later,
And there's
things are,
still misinformation out there, right? So,
yes. Yeah, because it, my older brother, he has ADHD and
mhm,
ODD, and he's 7 years older than I am. So I saw growing up his struggles and like just all the help that my mom tried to give him. But like he had, honestly, like, he does a great job with masking. And I'm like, I don't like that he's masked so much because it's just like the world that we live in. He's been just masking, but he's so successful, but still also
mhm,
like he still struggles in other areas, and it's just
right.
hard sometimes too.
Yep.
But so with your family dynamics, if you don't mind me asking, are
Yep.
you like where do you fall in the family order?
I am the eldest of three.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So you kind of helped see like you saw like your siblings like with especially with your brother, and so you kind of helped see it and guide them a little bit.
And like I was even one of those, again, maybe these were signs potentially of I would be in science class and they would say, "Oh, do a science project or something." I had heard about like music therapy and autism. So I was like, I'm going to do a science experiment on my brother. Is that the most ethical thing in the world? Probably not. But like that, as I learned later. But I was in like high school, I think, at the time. So I wasn't quite aware of all of that. And maybe my teachers were just doing the best they could too. But it was like one of those things I always like wanted to understand too. Because yeah, I was like, oh, I want to be able to communicate and have a good time and like us all function. Like that seems like a good thing for us to do.
Yeah. Do you use any music therapy in your current practice?
So I am not a music therapist, but I do actually have a music therapist on staff, Deborah Hudson, and she's amazing. She's also an LPC or a resident in counseling, sorry, towards LPC. And so I do get a chance to like learn a lot and use a lot of music therapy practices and get some straight from the source. But she is also just such a great job and has such an expansive knowledge of so many interesting facets of music therapy that I had no idea even existed. So that has been a fun journey between expression, creation, just calming, regulation, right? There's just so many areas to go.
Yes, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm not musically inclined at all. So I like just see like hearing about it's like always been like fun because I mean I love listening to music and like
Hmm.
the heavier the beat with the drums or the guitar, the better for me.
Oh, yes. Same.
Yeah, that's why honestly I listen to a lot of heavy metal and hard rock because like they have like awesome drum and guitar guitar beats to them. But yeah, it is really cool just like knowing like how like the brain even like
Mm.
sound just like, hits it in certain ways. Have you ever done any sound therapy or like done like a sound bath?
Absolutely. I have several friends who, in the yoga teacher world, I get to work with several different people who do sound baths. And obviously, I've been to some and that were very different than others. But for the most part, it's such an interesting the way that it works with all of that, like in the frequencies, right?
Mhm.
That with the brain waves and people fall asleep. I love like when everybody wakes up and like hearing everybody's different experience.
It is amazing. Like, I did a sound bath. I've only done it once, but like every
Mm,
time the deep bowl would be hit, I'd feel like a pressure in my shoulder because I carry all my stresses and everything in my shoulders. And it'd be like
mm.
and press and then release and like press and release. And it was like just like this amazing experience. It was like just feeling all of that.
Yeah, that's interesting because as I'm hearing you say that, and then you were talking about the drums and the guitar and like just that deep, heavy, I'm like, that seems like maybe like you need like some grounding, or maybe that's something that's coming through some of that. I don't know. And I'm not trying to like therapize you or anything. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. And it's like right there. Yeah.
But no, it's true. I don't always get the most grounding that I need to get. Sometimes I need to get
Sure.
grounded a little bit more. So yeah, that's why I do gravitate more towards those deeper things to kind of help ground me. Because if anything like really high frequencies happen a lot, it really activates me. So
Mm,
I like the like deeper things.
to bring it down. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I don't want to get too political with this, but can you talk a little bit about like your experience with being in the queer community as a therapist? Because I know sometimes that can be different for each individual.
Absolutely. So I also happen to be a queer therapist with kids, and so I get straight until proven guilty a lot as well, for lack of a better way to put that right this second. And it's not the case. I have been married to a man and to a woman, and so there's just yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah.
it's been an interesting experience with that, but then also being it's been interesting because when I was first coming into practice, I wasn't really out very much, I guess. It wasn't that I was in necessarily. It didn't feel relevant, I guess, in the moment. And it was interesting because then I actually had another co-therapist at one of the practices, like actually out me to one of my clients, like during a group. And it was an interesting thing that I had to deal with later. It wasn't bad, but this client did have to work through some of their like feelings about having a queer therapist because that they didn't know was queer before that, and they had some thoughts and feelings, and it wasn't bad. It was just something to work through. So that has been interesting. And then as I have been more on my own and more independent, I've certainly gotten a little bit more louder about that. Interestingly enough, in my own town, I realized that I have maybe not been loud enough on the queer front. And I there was some feedback on one of the like Facebook group things that I was seeing that people were just talking and, oh, I see this question. And they were like, oh, I can see they work with neurodivergence, but are they queer? And I was like, yes, that we're like, if you look on Google, like we're queer owned, we're through and through, the whole house. Everything's going on.
Yeah.
Like, even the kids, we've all got it. So that's something I'm like, oh, I've been more vocal and I feel like that. And I'm in the community and I do things like that. And so that's something I'm coming across now. Oh, am I not being queer enough? At this point, it was like, oh, so it's just an interesting swing, I feel like, that going through.
Yeah. It is interesting that you mentioned that about not being queer enough because like I have friends in the community and like sometimes it's like you have to be so like in a sense like flamboyant, but you don't but you're not naturally flamboyant, like you shouldn't
Right.
have to be. And I was like, I fully agree. Like it's like someone that's like a lesbian doesn't have to be masked the entire time. They can be a feminine lesbian. They can be both. There should not be a prescribed way of being just
Right.
because you're in that community. It's just be you. I thought that was the whole, honestly, I thought the whole point was like you can just be you.
It That's where I am. And again, a lot of other people, it's not everybody, but I don't know if you can see the little flag on this side, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I'm like trying to make it, but I'm realizing my presence out, maybe I need, yeah, such an interesting, do you be out or then you're not enough? Or there's always something, I
Yeah.
feel anyway, as a therapist.
Yeah. Have you ever had any pushback with clients like if they find out that you're queer? Anyway.
Yeah, not directly, at least that I'm aware of. I will say in the back of my mind, there's some that I'm like, I wonder if that something went this way indirectly, stopped services or moved to someone else for something like that. But it didn't happen very often. And for example, the one I was considering earlier,
Mm.
that happened. Again, it wasn't right away. It wasn't super direct, but I wonder something happened with that. And that honestly, I think was more kind of parents. So honestly, I think parents sometimes have been a little bit more of a challenge if they're bringing their child in who is exploring any version of queerness, whether that's gender or sexuality or expression, any of those things. I would say the pushback I have seen the most has been with parents, if anybody. And it's
Mm.
typically one of the parents, not both, from what I've experienced on this side of things myself, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I can unfortunately see that because I know some people are like afraid that if their kids are exposed to it, that they're going to
Right.
become it. I'm like, but that's not how that works.
Not even at all. Like we don't even talk about mine. So
Yeah.
my queerness. Yep.
And it's not like they're seeing you kissing a woman or doing anything in front of them because that's not the space for it. And like they probably see worse
Right.
things online than what they'd ever seen in a therapy office.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. But I know you alluded to your kids. You don't want me to ask you how old are your kiddos?
I have one that will be 18 this year, and then one that will be 14 this year. So I guess 13 and 17 currently.
There's no way. You are too young to have kids that old.
I did mention I had a child a little young
Yeah.
during and needed some practicality in that moment. So, but
Yeah,
it
you
is
did.
true.
Yeah. I know like logically you could, but just like in your head, no.
It is wild, don't get me wrong. It has been something I've been reckoning with myself. Oh, okay. But I'm also not mad, to be honest, about when I'm 40, they'll both be over 18. And so that maybe will be nice. We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's not the case for me. Mine are 5 and 3.
Okay. Fun age. Fun ages for sure.
Yes, definitely fun. Definitely struggles. But honestly,
There's struggles on all ends.
yeah, yeah. So like whenever your kids are out on the board, have they noticed any, I guess, do they help you with the advocacy piece at all?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, they're both out and queer and pretty open about it themselves. I'm honestly pretty grateful. I feel like I have some pretty great kids, not just for myself, but they'll stick up for themselves and for other people as well. And I found that to be pretty cool. And we
That's
do like
awesome.
sometimes we do like community work together. So for example, my kid and I are hosting like a queer kid art thing, and it was their idea to do. Yeah, so that's been really fun getting to do that with them, and it's not this thing I'm having to hide. And it was something that I came out later on in life, quote unquote, even though I actually had been queer the whole time. It just like publicly people didn't realize the type of thing. So that's just been cool to not have to hide that, and then showing my kids that like I can see that they're like, all right, cool, I can have the confidence to be myself, even if other people don't necessarily agree with it or like it. I can't be too mad about that. And
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said like everyone in your practice are they part of the queer community as well?
some of them are, and then some of them are just affirming and not just affirming. I know that sounded terrible. We love them just the same. It's not like that. But everybody is trained, everybody works well, we all are on the same page and on the same board. But we are more queer than not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome too. And I love seeing like queer-owned businesses like thriving and like being out there for the community and supporting the community in different ways because it's definitely needed in today's world. And I'm so glad that you're doing that work and you have that space for them. It's just like
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, and I've been really grateful because at least one or two of them like came to me because that's what they were looking for too. I wanted to be a part of that, and they're doing it, and I love it. Seeing them grow, and then also seeing my community also get the support and help that it needs, and seeing how good and beneficial that work is. Yeah, pretty great, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like circling back a little bit
Uh,
to like your work with neurodivergence. What do you feel like is like one of the biggest tips or tricks that you teach the kids or kids and adults?
Yeah, because we work all across the lifespan, no matter when, yeah, you've been diagnosed for sure. And tips and tricks for what specifically?
Anything. I'm going to leave it up to you. So any tips or
Oh,
tricks?
we're leaving it open. Okay. I think one of the biggest things you mentioned, like with kids or adults, like honestly, PDA, and I mean that in the pervasive drive for autonomy, not necessarily the pathological demand avoidance. I know whatever way you want to call it, I just prefer the other because it's really about autonomy. And like we were talking about with ADA, right? Not having that autonomy. So as an adult, hey, you have the choice to unmask. Now, again, there may be people that don't love that, or there may be things that happen, right? But you can be supported, you can move through this, right? And with kids and adults, like honestly, usually it's like the emotional regulation and being able to be in like community with others and in connection with others is usually the biggest things that we start with. And so finding those supportive places, which can be hard, right? Because they oftentimes have been and having to mask, like they've had bad experiences or traumatic experiences, even with bullying, if they were acting different or whatever from the main group. Later on in life, I find that they're like very nervous about finding spaces. And nowadays, I'm actually finding kids with and their parents are more like even from a couple of years ago, I feel like they are more trying to find those supportive spaces. Like I feel like I'm getting parents asking for that more on
Mhm.
resources on, hey, where can I take my kid where they can feel supportive and supported and safe and with good people that are going to be cool with them. And so that I think has been really cool. But again, I think that relaxation piece, because oftentimes it was getting in fight or flight, no matter what it is, attention, right? And so oftentimes it's finding that I have all these fidget toys all over the place, right? But so many of them are drawn to are you a fidget toy aficionado?
I used to have a whole bunch when I worked with kids. I don't have any anymore.
Fair
But
enough. Fair enough. I I use them. I'm using one right now.
yeah.
But the Nido, there's like the water drop and it's like very dense compared to the cube. So it has a
Mm.
lot more tension. It's firmer. There we go. And so finding ways that they can also lean into that tension to then release it. Because if we want to honor that as well, like that feeling is coming up for a reason. And oftentimes with masking, you're just being told you're not feeling that or you shouldn't feel that. And so it's okay, how can we honor that even in a small way? And then, okay, once you've been able to metabolize through that emotion, okay, now you can do what you need to do, right? Type of thing. That's, I think, where I come from.
Yeah, that's so cool. As I say, I don't have fidgets as I'm like messing with my thumb rings. I have a thumb ring that I like twist and turn like all the time.
Yep, these little acupressure rings, I have them all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, I love those. I had some of my clients when I was working in the schools that like they would put them on and then I would run them over your fingers.
Yep, absolutely. All day, every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had to give my fidget toys back to the agency that I left
Oh,
because they helped pay for them, so I had to give them
fair.
back.
That's fair.
So yeah, which
Mhm.
is I guess fine because I don't really have anywhere in my house to keep them. I thought my kids
Mhm.
would have loved to play with them, but whatever. I can always buy them again if I really wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just been amazing. Is there anything, any upcoming groups or anything that you have coming up for the community that you're doing for either for the neurodivergent community or the queer community?
Yeah, we're doing one that is starting, I think, next week, actually, the week of February 17th. And depending, we'll run it again later as well, but it's called the SMASH group. I know everybody has an acronym for everything and makes up something. It's just like those basic things of sleep, movement, appetite, socializing, and hobbies. And that doesn't have to be like a standard across the board, but like finding out what works for you. We've got a group coming up for that. We also have a caregiver support group, which is for any version of caregiver. That it can be for someone who is autistic, but it can also be for someone who's maybe in hospice and things like that as well. But to get ideas and again, peer support as well, that led by a therapist. So we've got those coming up, and then we're gonna try some more nature-based stuff this year, a little ecotherapy, try to up it from walk and talks. We'll see what that looks like.
Oh, that'd be cool. Real quick though, because I know you like we haven't not talked about this a lot, but so on your yoga side of things, do you ever
Mhm.
bring that into your sessions?
All the time, absolutely. There are clients who have specifically asked me, please don't bring that in. That doesn't fit with my beliefs, and I won't. And if I do, maybe need to use different language, or I'll say, this is what it is. I'm not pushing this on you, but here's the science behind it, which is why I'm bringing this up to you. And I make sure it's very clear and cut so that way they feel good about that. But I have a lot of clients we talk in yoga ethics about and yoga philosophy as values essentially. So it's just a different language to do a lot of the same work. And because yoga is there's so much science behind it and reality and just the reality of it is that there is a yoga for everybody and everything. Like it is about regulation and balance. It's just finding what that version is for you. And so I absolutely. So I have some clients that's most of what we do is actually just practicing relaxing or doing yoga nidra. It's working through some of that, or even if they have a pose that they're trying to work on, we might even use that and bring in some energetics and somatics as well to connect with what's going on in their mind and their body and their life and it's really powerful. I love it. Again, just a different language, but I to do the similar thing, but I find it very effective for myself too.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Jesse, this has been amazing. One last question. Where do you prefer people to find you?
Yes, our website, creeksidetherapeutics.com, usually has the most information, but we're on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok. we're all over the place. So if you look for us, you will find us.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. This has been so fun. And it's just been so fun.
Good. Yes. Thanks so much for having me.